Hey guys, and welcome back to the Chronically Ill Diaries podcast. I'm your host, Jane, and today we have Tanya joining us. She is my quote unquote cousin in law, but honestly, she truly is a dear friend of mine, and I'm so happy to have her on today. She is currently a renal and telemetry nurse at a hospital in Modesto, California. And throughout this podcast, we go into why she got into the field she did, the struggles her patients and herself face, and some advice to others who might be interested in becoming a nurse in the future. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's do this. All right, so we'll get into it with starting out by what inspired you to become a nurse in the first place, like just in general.
I'd have to say my mother because she's been a nurse ever since I've been alive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, um, I have two older siblings and then, I have a twin sister, but she went into nursing school, when she realized, that she needed to provide, for four kids and my dad was not providing enough for us. Um, so I was just a baby when my mom started nursing. Nurses didn't make amazing money back then, but it was a job. But just seeing her, I feel like her grit and her ability to, be compassionate and caring to people, um, was probably what inspired me first.
Yeah, because you originally were doing a different type of career path, right?
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
was that?
Um, First I was trying to shoot for nursing. But nursing programs are extremely impacted, and I was always waitlisted. Like for years. So I felt like, okay, maybe it's not like my calling. Maybe I should, you know, find what's available to me, kind of thing. So, I was passionate, about working out, training others. So, um, I just became a personal trainer. I was teaching group classes, focusing on more like health and fitness and guiding others with like nutrition and like kids in school with their health and nutrition as well. So I was doing that for a few years, but I still felt like, nursing was still what I wanted to do. So after taking like a year break or year or two break of, not focusing on nursing, um, I went back in and just started applying to a bunch of more schools and I got in. Um, and yeah, I feel like, but I don't regret like what had happened. I feel like I needed to like take that little detour to understand like what was my passion, and be more maybe appreciative of the role I'm in now and using my experiences in training and um, coaching others with nursing as well. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, like kind of come together with all of it.
Yeah.
Because you are a renal nurse. Okay.
Yes.
And did you go into school knowing that that's what you wanted to do, or was it just kind of you got placed type of thing?
I definitely did not think this was what I was going to do. It was not my first choice, and if anything, I was not the best at learning, like the kidneys, diabetes, telemetry. Those were difficult topics for me to like fully understand in nursing school. Funny thing, but when I left nursing school, I thought, what do I want my first nursing job to be? And I thought I want to find something that's going to be the most challenging for me because I think that would help me build my skills and build my knowledge, off the get-go, and then I could build off that easier as, my career advances. So I knew a friend or had a friend in this position, and I reached out to her on like what her experience was like, and she was very honest and she loved it, but she was like, it's really hard. It's there's these patients are very sick. You're working with a lot of comorbidities as well on top of, renal complications. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna try. And I really loved it. I mean, it's really challenging because the patients are really sick and the position requires a lot out of you. But I am really happy that I started in doing this first.
Yeah, because I didn't know how it worked. Like when you get done with nursing school, if you just they put you somewhere or you apply for certain departments or how that went. So I was like, oh, did they just put you in kidney care and like that was it?
Right.
No, that's cool that you chose that. It all like comes together good. But so are you able to explain a little bit like a day in your shoes when you get there to when you leave? Obviously, not all of it, but like the gist of your role in that
Mhm.
position.
Yeah, I work in the inpatient setting at the hospital um, on a renal telemetry unit. I get 4 patients max. That is our ratio, thankfully. And so when I come on, I get report on all for my patients. I mean, I could have 3 and take like a new patient along the road in my shift, but typically that's what I'm doing since I am night shift, focusing on like getting my patients ready, kind of like for resting, and um, they're like saying usually like good night and goodbyes with their family. So I'm like encouraging that time with them, but as well, I need to do all my assessments on all my patients. Reading all about their notes and reviewing their orders, their labs, just getting the general picture of each and every patient because each one could be so different or two could be like so much alike. So just like understanding um, the black and white in terms of what the doctor sees of the patient and then putting my own assessment with that, like building it together and learning more about the patient, like when I'm communicating with them, and then like understanding what the plan is during my 12-hour shift. I could have a patient who has absolutely zero medications, but I have to do their wound care, monitor labs, monitor their telemetry, make sure they're going to hemodialysis, or I'm doing their peritoneal dialysis. Or I could be giving them medications every hour. You don't really know what you could get. Um, so that's pretty much the whole 12-hour shift. I mean, it depends really on the patient and what they're going through. But along the way, I'm building rapport with them so that way they can trust me because I know it's a very vulnerable position. And, they could be going through like one of the worst days of their life. So just trying to build that rapport that way they can trust me to take care of them and that know that they feel safe, in the hospital and when they're sick.
So these patients are like in the hospital.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, cool. So okay, I'm trying to understand. What I understood of your position is so different than what you actually do this whole time. For how many years that you've been a nurse, I thought that you were like in a dialysis unit, inpatient. They came in, they did their dialysis with you, and then they went home. That's always what
Mhm.
I thought you did. Obviously, that's not. So these patients, you come on for your shift, they're like checked into the hospital, and then typically you'll see these patients for like just however long their stay is, if it's like a week, if it's a couple days, and then it's done.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So you do their peritoneal. Do you have to do their hemodialysis if that's something that they do?
No, because we have a dialysis unit already. There's dialysis nurses that do that already. They either go to that unit to get it done, or the nurse will come to their room and do it right there in their room. I only do their peritoneal dialysis for them.
How is that doing their peritoneal dialysis?
I don't mind doing it at all. Like I love being like hands-on, doing like procedures, stuff like that. Um, especially, I mean, most of the time these patients are easygoing, I think, because they just know that they have to have someone do this and they've been doing it for a while. So most of the time the patients are always fun to work with, or, you have to like sit there for a while and, chat with them. So I don't mind doing it. I guess the challenging part is just maybe with time management, if like you have to do their peritoneal dialysis every 2 hours. We don't unfortunately have a cycler yet. We've been told that we're going to get those machines, which would help tremendously, I think, and like probably even make the patients feel more comfortable because that's what they're using most of the time at home anyway. And I'm doing it manually, in the room, coming in every 2 hours, every three or every four. Maybe they're going to be dry all night, so I don't do it so often. But I think it would help if we did have the cyclers.
Yeah, manual dialysis all night for multiple people. I mean, I know you only have four, but still, like, that's a lot to do. Um,
Yeah.
so do you have to like schedule them like a little bit apart so you have time to like keep them on schedule, or you kind of just,
It's the nephrologist actually who schedules the time that they get done, and sometimes it's not the most convenient time, like because like I start my shift 6:45 and then 7:15 I'm done with report, and you could have your first round at 8 p.m., which gives you, 45 minutes to do what you need with all of your patients in terms of assessments and reading all the notes. And as much that could be enough time, but like 8 p.m. is also like sometimes starting your med pass with all your other patients. So sometimes it could just feel like a time constraint. And just making sure like the nurse before you kind of sets you up for success, like the fluid's in the warmer, the fluid doesn't need medication added because that means it needs to be taken down to pharmacy so they can add the medication for you. So sometimes time constraints doesn't allow you to be maybe right on time, but for the most part, like just having a great team will help you set it up for success, but you never know.
yeah, your like flow of the night, yeah, from the nurse before, the day nurse. The day nurse doesn't do dialysis, but most likely they do. So, and then they have the nighttime. Yeah, sometimes
Hmm.
it depends. What would you say would be the youngest patient that you can think of that you've had to deal with to do their peritoneal in the hospital?
Um, I want to say it was definitely like early 20s or mid 20s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but so it's mostly like older patients, 50s,
Um,
40s.
I've had a couple patients who are a little bit older, maybe in like their 50s. Um, but I feel like most of the time I see them in the like that 20s, 30s range, because I feel like the patient has to be pretty independent and, you know, they have to have that capability of doing it on their own at home. So I think that's just what I see is that if they have that ability, then they're doing it. If not, then I'm sure the nephrologist is going to try and transition them to hemodialysis so someone else could be doing it for them. So most of the time, I feel like I do come across more like younger um, or young people who seem like they have that ability.
Mhm. Yeah, because when you think about it at home, like the bags are heavy. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
The more you have to do, the bigger those stupid bags are. And
Yeah.
to be able to like carry them around and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I remember all the supplies that you would have in your place. Like you would have boxes like of just supplies and fluid just ready to go for you. So I can only imagine that, they're doing the same thing at home.
That's the main thing I don't miss is like our whole closet or the whole patio or whatever it was just stacked with boxes and you had to like throw that stuff away every day or it would just pile up.
Yeah.
And then when the bags are empty, anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that you face in this role? I know you said that you liked the challenge and you want to challenge yourself, but what would you say is like one of the biggest challenges you face right now?
Um, I think sometimes it's like meeting the demand of what the hospital wants from me sometimes. Like I understand, like, I want to provide the best care I could, safe care, compassionate care to every single patient. But sometimes my patient assignment can be very heavy, and I'm not able to spend as much time with maybe like one or two of these certain patients because I'm spending so much more time on others.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if that has to do with resources or if that's just me per se. But sometimes I wish I could spend more time being there for them. And like, granted, it's night shift, so these patients should be resting. At the same time, I'm coming in to wake you up at the most inconvenient time to do stuff. Um, and I think, like I've already mentioned, our like we us not having like the cycler, like we probably wouldn't have to be doing the procedure as much, and messing up with the patient's rest if we didn't, or if we did have the cyclers. So maybe it is probably resources, but I know other hospitals have, less than what we have. So sometimes I'm like, I don't think I can complain with what I have because I have a wonderful team and I know I could lean on anybody if I needed anything. But maybe another thing is like difficult patients, you know,
Mhm.
I'd say that's like an extreme difficulty because you're trying to do the best you can for everyone, and there's like a patient who doesn't want to be there, who's giving you a hard time or, making a hostile environment, and that could be pretty hard.
Yeah, no, for sure. You always hear about those patients that are just like so mad at the world, and
Hmm.
you have to like, hi, so and so.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then like those type of patients can go on to complain about you or, lead bad reviews or you know, their responses to surveys and such. And it's like you gave the best you could, but it's because you didn't know, you couldn't read their mind about that they didn't want ice in their water and, they preferred the door closed and you left it cracked or, like little things that, like you said, if they could just be mad at the world and they're just taking it out on you. So that's pretty hard.
I won't lie, I would usually be that person, but I got better like with time. But I would be that person. Like it was so bad. I
But I
was
feel I totally understand though. Like I try to be extremely empathetic. Like I know no one wants to be in the hospital. No one wants to be ill and away from life and,
Mhm.
the outside world. So I get like being there is not your first choice, but at the same time, like you're there because you're that sick, and you're there to get care and you have every right to leave or refuse. So sometimes it could just be hard that you're trying to do that for them and they're not letting you.
Yeah, I feel like you're in a hard position too because, like, if someone's just in the emergency room and whatever is wrong with them, they're in the emergency room. And typically, people don't really have that much knowledge about what's going on with them, you know?
Hmm.
But someone that's there for something you're treating them with, it's like they are a lot more knowledgeable in their body and like what's supposed to happen and blah, blah, blah. So it's like I feel like for me, for example, that's why I was such like a bitch about it because if someone didn't know something that I knew was supposed to happen or like they seemed unsure, then I would be like, okay, like I want someone else because they don't know what they're doing. I know that's like messed up, but like it would scare me to the point where I would just be rude. And I feel
Yeah.
like as time went on and the more I was in those situations, I obviously stopped being rude. But for a long time, I was just like, no, like I don't want someone touching me or like doing this to me and they don't seem confident or I ask them a question and they don't answer it, but I know the answer. Like something like that. And
Yeah.
it would just make me feel like, okay, now I'm just gonna like refuse to like talk to them or whatever the case was, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you're kind of in that sticky situation where they can be amazing or they can be like that. And like know more than all the nurses there, which is like totally how I was, even though I'm so like not educated. But
But you are, and like you know yourself more than the nurses know you. So I completely get it. I mean, if roles were reversed and someone was going to do something to me and they're over here, you know, not sounding confident at all or questioning what's going on, I would be like, do not touch me. This is my body, this is my health, this is my life. I want to feel confident in the person who's taking care of me. So, you have every right to speak up. So that would be on the the caretaker, the caregiver to
yeah.
hopefully do their part in learning, asking questions, speaking up when they don't know, finding someone who does know, for you. So,
Well, this is totally a side note, but when I moved to Arizona, I got a new dialysis nurse, and she never heard of my cycler before. Never heard of it. Didn't know how it worked. And obviously, so I came from California, went to Arizona, and they were only using like the first generation of cyclers. And I had the one where it uploads to like the system and I don't have to write anything, all that. And yeah, she asked me to bring it in and to teach her how to use it. And obviously, that from there on, I was like, okay, like this is ridiculous. But yeah, that's like that just made me think of that because I'm like that's kind of what made me like be crazy because I'm like this nurse doesn't know how to use a dialysis machine, but she works in a dialysis unit.
yeah.
Pay me, people, pay me.
Yeah, which I get, but I feel like also I would give her credit for speaking up and asking you to teach her when it's probably the facility that she's working at who's probably lagging with their educating their staff on like what they could be coming across with their patients. So, um, yeah.
It was crazy. Okay, so you mentioned that you worked obviously with like dialysis, kidney disease, diabetes, and then you were talking about, oh my gosh, where's the word? Tele telemetry? What's it
Mhm,
called?
telemetry.
What is that?
Telemetry is just the system of monitoring patients' heart rhythms and rates. Most of the time, the patients on our floor require being on a heart monitor because they're at risk of electrolyte imbalances or they're being admitted for cardiac reasons or a stroke or anything like that. So most of the time, the doctor wants them to be on a heart monitor just because, I mean, I'm sure you know, like any risk of a electrolyte imbalance could start making your heart rhythm just go into little funky little rhythms, dangerous rhythms, excuse me. So just wearing one, you could like catch something early. Sometimes like when my patients are sleeping, they'll have like little like PVCs or just little changes in the rhythm that aren't dangerous. And we're like, we haven't checked their electrolytes in 24 hours. Is that all right if we do that right now? And then turns out like their potassium is really low all of a sudden, unexpectedly or something. So just for the patient safety, they're put on a heart monitor.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was like, I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna ask. Um, okay, going off of that, one of the questions was, how is that, or why is that important when it comes to renal care? So why is telemetry, how does telemetry technology aid in monitoring patients? You answer that. And why is it important for renal care?
Well, most patients, when they are going to hemodialysis or even having peritoneal dialysis, or even just diabetics who are getting insulin, you're at risk of your electrolytes. I always just say getting out of whack to my patients. I'm like, hey, there could be sudden changes. Typically our patients or all the patients really in the hospital are getting their labs drawn just once every morning. But I mean, in a 24-hour period, there could be a change, that could be missed. So wearing a heart monitor, you can catch. rhythms that um, or catch little changes in a rhythm that are showing signs of like changes in a patient's potassium, which is extremely important and could be deadly for anyone. In hemodialysis, I'd say especially because like I said, patients are getting their labs done in the morning, and the hemodialysis nurses, they will review all of their patient assignments and look at their lab work, and whoever their potassium is like very high, like the highest, they'll take those patients first in the first round of dialysis in the morning because they're a high priority because they're more at risk of, a deadly cardiac rhythm. Um, so it's mostly for patient safety, in terms of monitoring their heart.
Yeah. Yeah, I was scared of potatoes and bananas for a really long time afterward because like the potassium is so high in it. And I like had to I had heart problems because of the potassium.
Mm.
So it that totally makes sense. I get that. But yeah, I eat a banana every day now and it's so nice. It's so good. Potatoes. Oh my gosh, I love potatoes. But yeah, like that kidney diet is crazy. I'm assuming all your patients are on a very strict, nasty diet.
Yeah, most of the time it's just like a renal diet, but it could also be renal on top of cardiac, on top of fluid restriction. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, but this is all you can, this is all you can have. And family members are like trying to bring them stuff on top of maybe diabetes and like checking their sugar. So their carb control as well. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can't really snack too much out of these 3 meals. I'm sure that's hard out of someone's like normal day-to-day routine.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so restricted. You can't just go in the cabinet and grab a snack. It's like, no, you got to call and it's only broccoli. Uh,
Yeah.
sorry. Um, okay. I haven't read these since I sent them to you. So,
I haven't either. So I'm like, I'm just winging it.
okay. So there are some questions about just like normal kidney health. Are you okay with answering those? It's under the insights and renal health.
Yeah, I'll do my best because I feel like I probably don't know the best answers, but I can just the best knowledge I have.
Okay, what about we'll go on number 6. Okay, so what advice could you give to people to maintain good kidney health from what you've learned and witnessed in your role in the hospital?
For sure, if you're doing dialysis, stick to your appointments.
Mhm.
Um, we have a lot of patients who come in because they miss dialysis. Um, and I mean, we'll have a patient who will miss one round of dialysis and they're really sick. The craziest thing I've ever heard is hearing a patient missing a month of dialysis. I don't know how true that is, but um, that's a very long time. So, so maintaining your dialysis appointments, following your nephrologist if you have a nephrologist, their recommendations or guidelines in terms of your diet, maintaining your overall health, like your mental well-being, and your stress. Hopefully you have that support system, in place at home. And if not, you find it or build it because um, it's not easy, like if you have in certain cultures, maybe like family love cooking certain foods and it's all about here, eat this, do this, but they aren't supporting what you're supposed to be doing for yourself. That can be kind of hard. So just having that support system is also a really big thing. Um, what else? I feel like that's all I can kind of think of.
Yeah. Do you feel like since you've been in this role that you like take your excuse me, your health and like kind of made changes to your own life now that you're like work in hospital and you see sick people every day? Like, do you feel like you've changed the way that you've been living or anything in your daily routine?
I would say my perspective on life, just being very appreciative of my health and my body today because a lot of these patients lived normal lives, and didn't do anything drastic to allow this to happen to them. It could happen to almost anyone sometimes, you just never know where your life or your body is going to head um, as you age. So just being appreciative of today, you know, um, being more mindful in my nutrition and my physical activity because I can't take for granted, like I said, what my body and my health is today. But yeah, I'd say those are probably the two biggest things.
For sure. I feel like people don't realize how nice it is to be able to eat what they want and
Oh
work
yeah.
what they want, and like for people in your situation, like not have swollen feet and can wear shoes or
Hmm.
um, be able to spend the night somewhere and not bring a bunch of supplies and stuff like that.
Yes.
People don't realize how good it is to just
Right.
do the work and come home and that's it. Like it's
Ex-
a blessing.
Yeah.
I literally had a good question and I forgot it. Okay, what about this one? What advice would you give someone that is thinking about going into nursing? What advice would you give them?
I would say if you're curious in this role, definitely give it a try because you will grow so much, and there's a lot of opportunities out there. But I would say find what you're passionate about, and if you don't know what that is, find something that can challenge you and grow your skills so that way you can find, what you want to tune in on. Because you don't want to be unhappy in this type of field. It's a very difficult job, that could be emotionally exhausting, physically, mentally, you know. So just finding something that makes you want to wake up and make a difference in your role, there's plenty of different positions, opportunities out there that you're not stuck. Um, so I would just say, find what you're passionate about.
Yeah, because there's so many different, with just a nursing degree, you can go in any way, right? Like you don't have to be in a hospital, right?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
What are some other like options that people can do for with their nursing degree?
I mean, there's so much. I mean, just within renal, I could be specifically a dialysis nurse working in the outpatient setting. I know there's places locally that are trying to do in-home dialysis. That's kind of like reminds me of home health. That's another thing, being a home health nurse, where you go to someone's home, and provide whatever nursing interventions that you need to, being a wound care nurse, being a labor and delivery nurse, a fertility nurse. I mean, sometimes I feel like the possibilities are endless. You can work in the OR. Um, Whatever you've kind of had an itch for, you could probably find a nursing role in.
Okay, so if they told you today, Tanya, you cannot be in the renal realm at all, you have to change today, what do you think you would want to do? If it could be anything.
If it could be anything, I would love to like work some way, somehow, in like women's health. It's definitely the positions in that kind of field, I feel like lean more into like a nurse practitioner role. But somehow if I could be like a nurse in women's health, I mean, I guess sometimes the first thing I think of is um, like family planning facilities, like a Planned Parenthood or something like that. But a women's health facility, I feel like be really cool. Just trying to be an advocate for other women, in their health, I feel like would be really cool because I've had a lot of women help me as I've grown up. You know what I mean? When sometimes it could feel hard asking those questions to your own family members when you're not like taught certain things. Um, so I feel like it'd be cool to kind of be that advocate or like teacher to other women.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. There's actually this place that just opened up down the street from my job, and it was three women, and they're all nurses, but their practice is infertility, but it's more of a holistic approach to
Mm.
fertility, but they're all like come from a medical background, so it's kind of that blend of both sides because obviously at some point like we need the science, you
Yeah.
know, but also getting there without doing like IVF or whatever it may be to get
Yeah.
the result. But yeah, something like that. I love women's health, fertility, all that type of stuff because people um, they don't really talk about it for one, and they don't really educate women on anything. We're just
Right.
get pregnant and pop out babies, and no one wants to talk about any of it. So,
Yeah, exactly. Like when you're a young woman, they just try and push how can you not get pregnant being so young, like as if it's a bad thing. But then again, maybe it's the fact that resources are hard, and support system, how expensive it is to raise children. But then when we are older and try to have children, like why is it so difficult to get pregnant? So that's cool that those ladies are have a holistic approach to their fertility clinic kind of thing.
yeah. Well, do you have any questions for me? Any last comments that you wanted to make at all before we wrap this up?
Maybe yeah, a question for you. For like if it was like a patient of mine who was happened to be listening to this, but like a patient who does or anybody who does peritoneal dialysis, what kind of advice would you have for them in terms of, you know, going through peritoneal dialysis and maybe even waiting for like a transplant? Like, what kind of advice would you have?
So my biggest advice would be to do your treatment. That's one because my biggest thing was as time went on, I got more and more sick, but that also meant it was more of a commitment on my end to do the treatment. And since I was doing it at home, no one held me accountable for doing it. So if I didn't do it, I just would take the L and feel like shit the next day. But
Right,
it got to a point I had to be on for 12 hours a day, and I do not sleep for 12 hours in a day. Like right now, I sleep for maybe 5 or 6 hours. Like I don't have time to do that much dialysis. Um, but I would say to just during that time of your life, as annoying and frustrating as it is, to just put yourself first. And if you need to go on disability, you need to work less, again, and go on disability, finding out ways to do that for yourself because doing that and not working is so much better. And like just taking some time off from school or whatever the case is, um, than not doing your treatment, feeling like shit every single day. Because honestly, if you do the treatment, you're never gonna feel 100%, but you'll feel good enough to feel normal, if that makes sense. And I feel like that was one of my biggest things is I just chose to be stubborn with it. And that's why I would end up in the hospital all the time because all my levels were so messed up from like skipping or shortening or whatever. And I was just sick all the time. And I would, if I, if I ever had to do it again, oh my gosh, just no. But if I did, I would definitely be very strict about my treatment. And hopefully then it wouldn't make it to 12 hours a night because I feel like that was also because I I wasn't doing it. So long. But yeah. So yeah.
my gosh, you've gone through so much. I'm so happy for you where you're at today.
You know, it's if anyone is listening, like your patients, whoever, it got to the point I would rather have died, but finally the day came, like after 5 years, it came, and instantly I was brand new, like back to normal, even better. I woke up and I was like, I think I was 15 pounds. Like I lost 15 pounds within the time of my surgery because all the fluid just came out of me. And like it's like so drastic, but it's like really like that. Like it's the second you get the kidney, it's like your life changes that quick and you just are a human again and you can eat and you can not feel sick. I don't know if your patients feel sick when they eat, but I would like almost throw up every time I ate. So I was like skinny and food was just gross, but you
Hmm.
can eat again and do all of the things and it's really cool. So it'll happen. It'll happen.
Yeah.
It just takes a very long time.
Yeah. That's why the support system, I can see just making such a difference on someone going through this because you could be on top of it every single day, but I'm sure at one point you're like, I'm over this. I don't want to see another piece of equipment again. And like you said, you just wanting to get out of the house or spend the night somewhere, or travel or whatever it is. So I can see how just getting over it, you really need that support system to help you when you're down, and pushing through. So,
For sure. Because we didn't live by family, and I just had friends, and he was a good support system because he set up my dialysis every single day for all 5 years. And yeah, there would be like a day here and there that he wouldn't, and I'd be like, excuse me, like, um, but like it's just stuff like that, or like knowing how to set it up, knowing the diet, so he can like help me and not bring like all this junk food that I want to eat into the house and whatnot.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely that support system, 100%. Um, but yeah, it it's hard, but it could be worse. You still can live a normal life doing it. So that's the positive of it, I would say.
yeah, yeah, for sure.